last night I turned 31. And normally birthdays, well, they excite me. I mean, I planned my 30th birthday down to the hour. But last night I struggled to feel excited. I had a really hard time looking in the mirror and seeing the same woman that others perceive me to be. Being young, being a woman, being black, and a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company can be overwhelming at times. And let's not even try to throw finding love into that equation. But I don't have everything together. And that's okay. But what I do know is that I paid for my crown, and I'm gonna wear it. You see, when I was younger, I was tiny. I wasn't confident, I wasn't stylish, I wasn't trendy. My family was just getting started financially. And I could remember feeling ashamed because my back-to-school clothes always came from Kmart. I didn't feel beautiful, I didn't feel smart, I didn't feel. And no one told me otherwise. And on top of that, I was a gymnast. And I was good, but I was one of only a few girls who were black and who were in the club at that time. And we would go on the road in Michigan. And I can remember that some of the girls would move their room assignments because their parents had taught them that blacks were dirty. And so you can imagine at 10 what that does to a girl who's already insecure, who's not confident. I should have been excited because I was good. I should have felt empowered because my coaches were cheering for me and they wanted me to excel, but I wasn't. And to top it off, my best friend is like Barbie. And in fact, today, I call her Dr. Barbie these days. And I can remember wanting her hair and her eyes. Like the girl in the book, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, I just wanted the way that people greeted her when she walked into a room. And that sense of ease that she always seemed to have, I wanted that. But in my life, compliments were few and far between. And I would rarely ever get a smart or a beautiful or anything like that. I mean, my parents were just trying to survive. They weren't thinking about how to build a girl who had positive self-image. They just wanted to make ends meet. And at 27, my mother found herself newly divorced with 2 kids and without a college education. And so I was lonely. I just existed. And in this, I had books. And my books were science fiction. They allowed me to escape. They allowed me to one day read about a girl who could be like Cinderella and magically just become a princess. Or far and distant adventures with people on remote planets that had crazy adventures and could just escape. They allowed me to create my own reality. And since that day, I've realized that I had to take control of my own narrative. And I've spent the last 20 years working to be a better person than I was the day before. So you can imagine that my first day in high school, right? I didn't want to be there. I mean, it was just like the most awkward thing, right? And I was uninterested, I was unmotivated. And when it finally came time to graduate, you know those sessions you have with your high school counselors, and they sit there and they tell you what they think you could be, and you accept that, and maybe you try to work towards it. My guidance counselor and for me that she thought that I should be a cosmetologist. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that, but that was all she thought I could be. And I knew that I could be and I could do more. But my self-confidence, it came from an unlikely place. There I was, my first semester at community college, and I decided to pursue a degree in business because that is what all the cool kids in my peer group were doing. And it was going to be international because you couldn't do business if you didn't travel. And in that coursework is econ, right? Well, I got a C. And I came home and I'm thinking, okay, great. Like, it's my first semester, I'm excited, and I got a C in economics. And I didn't know what to do, and so I talked to my father, and I tried to avoid it. I mean, I was not interested in talking to him about this grade at all. But that's always the first thing in a parent's mind. Oh, what'd you get? Can I see the paper? Do you have it with you? And he just looked at me when I told him that I got a C, and he says, I think you should take a math class. And then came the bribe. I'm like, wait a second. Did you miss high school? Like, there was math there, and I didn't do well. There's math in econ. And he simply looked at me and he said, you know what, I'll pay for it. Okay, you know, who am I to tell you what to do with your money? Like, let's let it roll. But that class changed my life. And it wasn't the content, really. It was the accomplishment. Because that A in pre-algebra became an A in calculus. And my confidence, which I really didn't have, started to grow little by little. And so this girl who didn't think that she could really be anything ever and didn't have a group of people cheering her on, sat down one day and said, what if I just threw out everything that I thought about myself to be true? What if I made a list? And on that list, I put the most outrageous things that I could think of, right? I took control and I created my own narrative. And first on that list was I was going to go to the University of Michigan because it was an amazing school with world-renowned programs. And I was going to study aerospace engineering because my love of science fiction demanded it. And not only that, I was going to go and I was going to work at NASA because NASA represented the best and the brightest in everything I had hoped to become from this list. And you know what? I did. And every single thing on this list came true. It came true. But it wasn't because it was easy. It was really hard. I struggled. And eventually, I transferred from the community college. I got an undergraduate degree in aerospace engineering and a master's in space systems engineering. And I wouldn't change anything about that other to see more of us in science and technology fields. So after all that, you can imagine, like, my first day at NASA Ames was like a dream. I mean, I could not believe I was there, let alone an employee. Like, I had a badge. I was supposed to be there. And I could just, like, roam. But what was crazy about the fact that I was there is that I turned the job down. They asked me to come, and I did not think, after all of that, that I still was good enough, because there were 4.0 kids in my class that they didn't offer the job to. And I'm thinking, well, why me? And my mentor at the time looked at me and he was like, are you crazy? You're gonna go and you're gonna take this job. And after 6 years, they could not get rid of me. I mean, I used to roam, and any excuse to get out behind my desk, to go and see and do, I mean, I would take it. And NASA's like a really big tech jungle, right? I mean, we've got a lot of amazing things. I would see guys, and it would look like they were scanning things, right? And I would ask them, well, what are you doing? Well, they were testing out the handheld scanners that astronauts used on orbit to check and see whether or not there was any damage to the shuttle tiles. On another occasion, I remember walking through a warehouse, and there were all these canisters that were silver. They just looked like film, right? And I asked them, like, what's in there? And they're like, oh, well, we're just digitizing the original film from the moon landing. What? And it was in a, I kid you not, a McDonald's with a pirate flag on it on the base. Like, I'm like, so let me get this straight. You guys had the moon landing tapes in the McDonald's? And thanks to the building that was next to mine, the vertical motion simulator, astronauts always seemed to be able to land the shuttle, right? When it came back the first time, even though they may have never flown it before. Well, let me tell you guys, I too can land the shuttle. And I have the DVD to prove it. It was amazing. I mean, not only the environment, but the people, right? I mean, I remember having lunch one day with Buzz Aldrin. You know, one of the guys who was the first to walk on the moon. And another amazing opportunity, I got to sit down with Nichelle Nichols. I mean, the original Lieutenant Uhura, the first African-American lead in Star Trek. The first interracial kiss on film, like what? And she taught me to stand just a little bit taller. You know, what's interesting about Nichelle is that she's an example of science fiction becoming science fact. She went out and she recruited the first African-American class of astronauts for NASA because she believed that African-Americans were not only qualified, but they wanted to go into space, which at the time was kind of, I mean, it was kind of contentious. And she's the one who brought us the Mae Jemisons and the Guy Blufords of the world. And so if you think that women have not been behind the scenes the entire time, pushing science and technology, well, that's just incorrect. And another thing that I love is that more of these narratives are coming to light. I mean, early next year, there's a movie called Hidden Figures. And that's another story of women behind the scenes. And they were the computers. And I'm not talking about the ones that you plug in. I mean, these are women with pencil and paper who are writing out the calculations so that we can get stuff into space. And now, with Taraji Henson and Janelle Monáe, the whole United States can see the amazing Katherine Johnson and the women who were instrumental in putting John Glenn into orbit and that historic mission. And that, to me, I mean, if there's anything that I've learned from working in hard science, it's just that it's pervasive. It's in everything, right? It's in art, it's in entertainment, it's in fashion. And so are we. And so we should not be intimidated to not only be in tech, but be fashionable and be fly and be beautiful. So I decided I was going to start my own company, right? I mean, here I am. I've been at NASA for 6 years, and I see that there's so much that could be done. And it came from my desire to, one, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and two, I wanted to make my mark, and three, I wanted to create opportunities for women and people of color in the technology industry. So you would think, okay, look, graduated from college, went to NASA, had an amazing career during those 6 years that everyone would be on board. Oh, no, 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 no. My mom was like, what? She was like, let me get this straight. Did you know you're a rocket scientist? You work at NASA, and NASA has benefits. And you're going to do what? You're going to leave to just do your own thing? Yeah, and I did. Because my will is stronger than that of any naysayer, right? And my faith is my foundation. I know that I have taken control of my own narrative, and I've grown confident with my authenticity and being who I am. And so today, from educational platforms to building drones, STEM Board is on the cutting edge of developing products for government and private sector clients. And we've built by hand a multi-million-dollar contracting pipeline, which I manage. And the best thing about this, right, is that my story is not unique in that there are so many women who find themselves almost getting lost to the noise. But you have to block that out. You have to look at who you are and what you know that you can be. And so the best part is that you never know whose journey you're going to inspire.
One of the things that I think is most inspiring as I listen to you is how open you are about your vulnerability. From being a young girl who didn't believe in herself to a woman who still turned down a job because she didn't think she was good enough, even though she had you had accomplished and you had succeeded. And then these leaps of faith that you take in yourself. I think when I think of my being a younger girl and all the things that you feel like you have to be tough through and not show your vulnerability and fight through and prove to everybody around you that you're strong enough and you're capable enough. How much of that vulnerability, that being in touch with that vulnerability and putting it out into the world and letting people know that, sharing it with these women, how much of that do you think actually gives you the strength that you've had to go forward?
All of it. It is the only way I can get by because, unfortunately, ladies, I don't get to talk to rooms like this very much. And I'm scared, right? I mean, I created my job. I have people that depend on me every day to feed their kids. And I have to be comfortable walking that line of being terrified and being confident on a daily basis. And in the beginning, I hid it because I just thought it's okay. Like, I need to be tough. And it would be weak for me to let them know that I'm concerned that I'm going to make a decision that's going to cause you to miss a paycheck. But I ran into a financial hiccup with the company. And I sat down and I laid it on the line with my people. And I found that they respected my honesty and my vulnerability more than the tough facade. And that's one of the things, I work on it every single day. Learning to be authentic, learning to be comfortable in myself and who I am and where I am at that time. Thank you. Do I have time for one more, or?
Just a simple question.
Yeah.
Is it on your personal bucket list to go into space?
Okay, so what's funny is the astronauts have been like, you need to do this, right? I guess on another personal note is I have the application and I have not completed it. There's a level of insecurity there, right? Which is something that I need to continue to work on. I also am a little concerned about strapping myself to what's essentially kind of like a bomb. And, you notice there's not a lot of videotape of like what they look like in transition, because it's not the smoothest ride, right? So I've been working on it. I've been, there are 3 things that are like a good to have. One is a scuba certification, so I got my scuba thing going on. And my friends, they're like working on being flight instructors, and I've started flying a little bit more, but I hope so, right? I really want to at least tell myself that I had the courage to try, and I'm looking forward to actually completing that application. Ooh.
I feel like a lot in business, we tend to be right off the bat competitive with each other. And I may not necessarily be able to write a check for someone, but what are some ways that we can support each other or supportive support things that you've received along your journey?
Sure. I feel like there are too few of us to be divided, right? And I talked to some women, and they were like, well, I'm naturally competitive. And I love what was said in the last session, because when was the last time you went out of your way to connect someone or just do something because it was the right thing to do? And that's the spirit and the culture that I want everyone to embody when they look at people in business or even your colleagues. You should always be trying to big up one another, make the connections, and even if you're tired, even if you don't have the bandwidth, I don't care. Get out there, because you never know when someone's going to do that for you. When I started this business, there's a woman by the name of Susan Hall, and Susan Hall is a badass, right? And she's one of many of those undercover badasses like Wanda Austin or Gwen Shotwell, who's the #2 at SpaceX and was there and helped Elon build it to a multi-billion-dollar business, but still chops it up at SpaceX every year. Like, she's just cool. And Sue took the chance on someone who did not have a company, had never really managed a non-technical team, and didn't have any financial funding. And you know what she did? She wrote me a check for $100,000. And she said to me, listen, Aisha, I need you to leave your job. And I believe in you, so I'm going to fund you to do that. And then she wrote me a check for $500,000. And she said, and I want you to do this for at least 2 to 3 years, because I know that you can do it. And at that moment, she had absolutely no reason, no logical supporting, nothing, right, to sit and put her company's resources and money on the line, other than she just thought she believed in me. And it was the right thing to do. And now we have a contracting pipeline of $30 million, and we're not even 4. So this is what I'm saying about you never know whose journey you're going to inspire, and you never know who someone's going to become. So just do things for the right reason and never worry about extending yourself.